But the surprise came anyway. The original 19 billion CAD estimate from 2022 didn't hold for long. By 2025, the projected cost jumped to 27.7 billion CAD, nearly 50% higher in just one budget cycle. And no one can say with confidence it stops there.
We think the F-35 purchase should be canceled, that we should not be looking to throw more money into a program that has been experienced so many delays and so many cost overruns.
What's the government saying about all this?
Yeah, and that number goes on top of the $19 billion that the government last projected that the F-35 program was going to cost. We're now over $27 billion, and the Auditor General, Karen Hogan, says there could actually be additional costs and additional delays in this program for a lot of different reasons.
Once the full ecosystem is counted, base upgrades weapons long-term support. Some scenarios push the total toward 33.2 billion CAD. A purchase meant to modernize Canada's Air Force now looks like a financial commitment stretching across decades. Billions in infrastructure were never part of the all-in story. At least 5.5 billion USD in upgrades, hangars, power systems, security networks, essential pieces that appeared only after the contract was underway.
This is a reduction in overall capability, and we should not go there.
Boondoggle and incompetence. I don't think you can call the F-35 anything but that. The price is double. We don't have enough pilots for them. We don't have hangar space for them. And it risks integrating more closely into the American military at a time when Prime Minister Carney campaigned against that very thing.
Even inside government doubts remain. Key planning still relies on 2019 data. Internal notes say officials are only about 50% confident in the newer projections. Half certainty, half risk. And the bases Cold Lake and Bagotville face their own price shocks. Both need major reconstruction just to host the aircraft, forcing Canada to rebuild the environment around the fighter, not just buy it. So the question hangs, is this the true cost, or only the first chapter of a much larger bill? As we begin, you can hit like and subscribe if you want to stay with the full picture. The details coming up change the meaning of everything we've seen so far.
I think it's not enough. I think Canadians expect more, and we should get more. So that's my first point.
So it would still be problematic for any country if they fell out of the US, whether there's a kill switch or not.
And if Canada's numbers look worrying, Switzerland shows how quickly a safe contract can fall apart. In 2021, Switzerland approved 36 F-35As under a fixed 6 billion CHF price. The pitch was simple controlled costs, no surprises. But only a few years later, US adjustments added between 650 million and 1.5 billion CHF. Public anger exploded. The deal turned from routine procurement into a political storm. The controversy grew when reports suggested former Defense Minister Viola Amherd knew about the risk months earlier than she disclosed. Transparency became the new fault line. Even the Swiss Federal Audit Office had warned in 2021 that the fixed price clause was legally fragile, a warning overshadowed by political urgency. Then came a second blow. US tariffs on Swiss goods climbed to 39%, the highest in Europe. The fighter deal suddenly looked less like a purchase and more like a pressure point in the broader economic relationship. If a country as meticulous as Switzerland couldn't avoid this spiral, it raises a difficult question for Canada. How stable is any guaranteed price when the buyer doesn't control the system behind it? Thanks for staying with us so far. If these insights are useful, subscribing is the easiest way to keep up with future updates. And after watching Switzerland stumble, Canada began looking at its own situation with less comfort. The rising F-35 bill forced a question Ottawa had long pushed aside: is Canada a buyer in control of its choices, or a system-dependent customer inside the U.S. defense orbit? Prime Minister Mark Carney ordered a full review of the contract, admitting that Canada relies too heavily on the United States for equipment maintenance and upgrades. Defense Minister Bill Blair was told to examine alternatives, not just another aircraft, but the possibility of assembling future fighters inside Canada to build real autonomy. Parallel to that, Ottawa opened conversations with the EU on reducing U.S. dependence, creating room for European designs like Gripen to be evaluated on strategic as well as technical terms. Industry Minister Melanie Joly added pressure by questioning why a multi-billion-dollar program delivers so little industrial benefit to Canadians, arguing that defense spending should reinforce domestic capability, not leak value abroad. While Canada is committed to the first 16 F-35s, the remaining 72 frames are not locked in, and that single fact keeps the door open to a very different fleet than originally planned. Once Canada began looking beyond the F-35, the Gripen stood out for reasons that had little to do with prestige and everything to do with practicality. A vast territory, limited budgets, and dispersed readiness don't reward the most complex jet. They reward the one Canada can operate everywhere, every day. A 2024 Jane's assessment estimated Gripen's life cycle cost to be roughly 60% lower than the F-35's. Flying hours, maintenance parts, all significantly cheaper over decades of service. Gripen's design also matches Canada's geography. It can operate from two 600-foot rough airstrips, including northern airports or highway stretches, something the F-35 cannot do without major infrastructure. Its support needs are minimal, a turnaround crew of about 4 technicians, plus the ability to refuel and rearm in under 10 minutes. That keeps operating costs down and readiness up. Reports place Gripen's availability above 85%, contrasting with the F-35's frequent struggles to meet international readiness benchmarks. For a country with long distances and tight budgets, the question becomes straightforward. Is the best jet the most advanced, or the one Canada can actually afford to keep in the air? For Canada, the issue with the F-35 isn't just the purchase price, it's where the value goes. Money leaves the country, jobs follow. Core technology remains outside Canadian control. That's why Saab's proposal hits differently. It reframes a fighter contract as an industrial strategy rather than a simple acquisition. Saab's offer includes assembling Gripen E aircraft inside Canada, an approach projected to generate around 10,000 aerospace jobs and shift Canada from customer to production partner. More striking is the commitment to transfer intellectual property and key technologies, giving Canada the ability to upgrade its fleet independently instead of waiting for U.S. approval cycles. The bid also promises 100% industrial offsets, meaning the total value of the contract would return to the Canadian economy through investment subcontracting and domestic manufacturing. A Canadian-run Gripen Center in Montreal would handle maintenance upgrades and system integration, laying the foundation for a local fighter ecosystem. Additional commitments, a cyber resilience center in Toronto, a sensor hub in Vancouver, and expanded aerospace R&D in Montreal extend the benefits into civilian tech sectors as well. In this model, the aircraft is only part of the equation. The real question becomes whether Canada wants a jet or an industry built around it. Even with Gripen's cost and industrial advantages, Canada faces a deeper internal fight should the country accept the risks of operating 2 different fighter types just to gain more economic autonomy from the United States. Air Force leaders warn that a mixed fleet means doubling training pipelines, simulators, maintenance systems, and logistics. In their view, that translates into higher long-term operating costs and a more complex force structure. Former Chief of Defense Staff Tom Lawson goes further, arguing that the F-35's combat edge makes any split fleet a strategic compromise in high-intensity conflict. But the economic side of government sees a different equation. Industry Minister Melanie Joly argues that many G7 countries already run multi-platform fleets, using them to diversify supply chains and reduce dependence on a single foreign provider. For her, the risk of operational complexity is smaller than the risk of being tied indefinitely to U.S. upgrade cycles and maintenance controls. Supporters of Gripen emphasize that training a second aircraft type may still cost less over time than relying on a system where every major part, update, and sustainment decision is influenced by an external supplier. In their view, the choice is not between efficiency and inefficiency, it is between dependence and flexibility. The debate exposes a fault line inside Canadian policy, whether to prioritize pure military uniformity or long-term industrial self-determination. And whichever path Ottawa chooses will shape the country's strategic identity for the next 3 to 4 decades. Canada's F-35 Gripen debate isn't just about aircraft. It reflects a broader global dilemma. Choose the most advanced platform available, or invest in an industrial ecosystem that strengthens the economy for decades. Next-generation fighter programs will be worth hundreds of billions, locking countries into specific supply chains and technologies for a generation. Switzerland's turmoil showed how a deal framed as security can turn into political fallout when costs rise or transparency slips. Canada now faces the same structural fork. Staying with the F-35 deepens North American defense ties, but sends much of the economic value upgrade software sustainment abroad. Opening the door to Gripen points to a different model where defense spending also builds domestic jobs, research capacity, and long-term industrial resilience. Canada isn't just choosing a jet, it's shaping the kind of economy and strategic independence it wants for the next 30 to 40 years. Should a fighter be only a military asset or also a platform that builds national capability? What do you think Canada should prioritize? Thanks for being here. We'd love to hear what you want to see next, another angle on this story, or a totally different issue. Drop your ideas below.